This ESPN podcast is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com.
The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects. The BS Report. The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report. Taping this on a Tuesday. It's going to run Wednesday. Doing a little NBA and then a little football at the end. First up, Zach Lowe, back in the United States, throwing himself into the World Cup. How are you?
Good. A little jet lagged. Didn't get my gelato stand set up in Croatia yet, so I'm back. I'm back watching some FIBA basketball.
Yeah. You picked a great month to take off. People say the NBA is a 12-month season now. It's an 11-month season. August, nothing really happens. And the only thing that happened in August was the Kevin Love trade, which everybody knew was going to happen. It finally happened. So no big surprise there. But now this World Cup thing comes, and it's hard not to watch these games, even when they're blowouts, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's basketball, and it's cool watching all these star players play together and try and figure out how they want to play. And it's cool watching a coaching staff. You know, all these guys are such preparation freaks. They spend their entire days watching film and thinking about their teams, whether it's NBA or college. And it's fun to watch them be like, okay, we have like a month to put together a team of guys who have never played together before. How do we want to do that? That's kind of fun.
Yeah. And in the U.S. case, the coaching staff is actually better than the actual roster. Not that the roster is bad, but holy mackerel, what a coaching staff. It's fun to just think of Thibodeau having just these 12 new players unleashed on him that he gets to figure out how to play defense with.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is they're playing his style of defense, which, look, I can't say that I chronicle these international tournaments as carefully as the NBA, but usually we pressure a little bit more. We try to use our athleticism a little bit more. We're doing that, but we're playing basically a Tibbs semi-conservative dropping style of pick and roll defense, and which is interesting. And he's clearly, after all these years, gotten Coach K's ear on how they want to play, standard pick and roll D. It's interesting to watch. Anthony Davis is a beast, and it's fun to watch these other teams that, you don't get to see these players very often, and it's a good excuse without the NBA around to, check in on Dario Saric and Bogdanovic and both Bogdanoviches and, Teodosic in Serbia and all these other dudes you don't get to see that much.
And for Utah fans to really start getting worried about Dante Exum now. I think they were worried after Summer League. Now it's like real concern. Now it's just a lot of fear and being frightened, I would think.
Yeah, I guess Australia just doesn't think he's ready to play. I mean, they're not playing him very much, sometimes not at all. And it's strange because you get hyped up to watch a guy like that, and then you don't see him much, and you're like, all right, well, I don't really want to watch the rest of this team play. I'm going to flip to one of the other 19 games that's on.
I don't know how good Marcus Smart is going to be as a professional basketball player. I just know that I'm not going to miss the first Boston-Utah game when he goes against Dante Exum. I guarantee he has it marked on his calendar already. All right.
This is the state of your Celtics fandom now, is looking forward to the Marcus Smart, Dante Exum lottery fodder showdown. This is what it's come to.
Yeah, it's literally one of the four biggest highlights, other than when today I made up a fake Rondo trade on the trade machine with Charlotte, and that got the Celtics Cody Zeller in the trade for a double Zeller. Got excited about that one.
The Zellers are easy. See, the Plumlee parents messed up by giving their sons names that are too similar. Like, I will never be able to, I would not bet my life or even my life savings on being in a millisecond able to identify which is Miles and which is Mason. Whereas the Zellers, I will always be able to get Cody versus Tyler because their names are so different. And the MM thing, I will never, even today I was watching Team USA destroy New Zealand, and Plumlee came in, and I was like, oh, it's Miles Plumlee's, getting off the bench. I was, wait, is it Mason Plumlee? I had to look up which Plumlee is on Team USA.
Yeah, and as you're saying this, I don't know which one is which. I don't know which one plays for which team. I know one's on the Suns, one's on the Nets. The Suns one is slightly better. That's all I know. One of them's named Miles, one of them's named Mason. Yeah. Hey, back to Team USA for a second. Anthony Davis, you would think there's a narrative here that I like, and I don't know if it's going to play out this way, but it's a little similar to Durant in 2010, where if Anthony Davis can own this tournament, and then it transfers into the season, and I think everybody agrees now that he's easily the favorite to be the next guy. If it starts in this tournament and then it carries over to the season, there's no chance New Orleans can make the playoffs, right?
No chance? I would give them a chance.
I mean, is there a decent chance? Like, wait, give me from no chance to semi-no chance, decent chance, good chance.
Well, I mean, look, this is the reality of the Western Conference, and the conference imbalance is worse than it's ever been in the NBA. I would say if they get reasonable health, like last year they had unreasonably bad health. If they get reasonable health, which means some injuries here and there, but nothing catastrophic, they could have like a 25 to 30% chance to make the playoffs. I don't think it's a good, maybe 30 might be high, but I think that they're a team. We didn't see this team at all last year, and frankly, we don't know what Ryan Anderson's health is going to be after a couple of very bad injuries, very scary injuries. So we don't know if or when he's going to be ready to play and what state he's going to be in, and that's a big deal. But that's a team that, at the very least, defensively, where they were bottom 6 or 7 last year, they should be able to make a giant leap defensively. And you know this. I mean, if you're in the NBA, the best way to compete night to night is to be a good defensive team. Look at Charlotte last year. Now, obviously, different conferences, different competition levels. But if you can just be like a competent top 10 defensive team every night, you could win more games than really your roster construction says you should. There's still a small bet to get in just because the West is so good, but it wouldn't surprise me if one of these Western Conference teams, and I don't want to speculate who it's going to be because it's so early, if there's one team among those playoff incumbents plus Phoenix, if there's one or two of those teams that just because of injuries or player decline or chemistry issues or whatever are just way worse or worse enough than we expect that New Orleans could sort of sneak up one notch on the ladder. I don't know who that's going to be, but wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I would say there's 4 definites: San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Clips, Golden State. Houston is a semi-definite, but the way that team's constructed now, if they had the terrible Harden or Howard injury, I think it would be really tough for them to make the playoffs. Portland's a semi-definite. The Memphis-Dallas spots would be the 2 I would look at. I mean, I would be very surprised if either of them made the playoffs, but those are just the ones. There's the most variables for something to go wrong. I gotta say, I always hate trading the superstar in a trade, but what Minnesota got for Kevin Love was a really nice haul, and I kind of like their team. I think when we do our league pass rankings this year, I think Minnesota is going to rank higher than both of us are prepared for.
Look, I don't know Wiggins beyond what I've seen in Summer League and a couple isolated things here or there. Enough people that I consider smart NBA people are bearish on him as sort of just like you shouldn't expect the average number 1 overall pick return. Like he may not be as good as you, but still, even given all that, you just look at the history of superstar trades to get consecutive number 1 picks, plus a quality player in Thad Young. Now, I'd rather have had the Miami pick than Thad Young personally, but to just get the last 2 number 1 picks, even if one of them in Bennett probably shouldn't have been the number 1 pick, it's a historically very good trade for Minnesota, even if Wiggins is below average for a number 1 overall pick. It's exciting. It's exciting for them because they needed all this crazy stuff to happen with Cleveland to emerge for the Cavs to emerge as a real suitor with all these goodies to offer, and maybe they sort of misplayed their hand, Minnesota, and got lucky in the end. But look, they got what they got.
Yeah, and you think like how bad that Celtics offer, whatever it was, on paper was compared to what they actually got to get a number 1 overall pick in a good draft. And then Bennett's not a typical number 1 overall pick. I think if he had been in the 2014 draft, he probably would have gone in the, right around Julius Randle, maybe a little after Julius Randle, maybe 7 to 10, somewhere between Randle and Vonleh. But to get both of those guys, and, they got some cap space out of it. I didn't love the Thad Young trade either, just because I feel like if you're getting Wiggins and Bennett, you're basically announcing we're not going to be good this year. We're going to build around these young guys. So then why do you need Thad Young? So he's going to take you from 28 wins to 34? Like, why do you want to do that? I'm not saying that to go Sam Hinkie and go the other way, but I would have rather had the pick. I'm with you.
Well, just play it out. What's the good outcome for Minnesota? He's probably going to walk in free agency because you would imagine he wants to be on a good team and there's going to be a million teams with cap room, or he wants to go to the team that offers him the most money, which is, if it's Minnesota, that's not necessarily a win either for them. But this is where Miami being in the East comes into play, right? Like that pick, I actually think Miami is one of the teams that could be worse than people expect them to be.
Totally agree.
That has a large downside, but like their downside is probably not going to be in the lottery because the East is so bad. So even their downside is like you might get the 18th pick or the 16th pick or whatever it is. It's not like you're going to walk into a gold mine unless things go really badly for Miami. The East is not good, but it's not. It's kind of deep and okay teams. So it's theoretically possible that their downside could be that bad, but I still see them as a playoff team, though a shakier one than I think they'd like to be.
It's a nice pick to have because, as you said, the downside, even though they probably won't hit it, but they're, who the hell knows with Wade? That guy might play 30 games this season, and then if that happens, now you're looking at a lottery pick. I just don't get it. And this is why I don't think I have a real problem with the coach and the GM being the same person, because I think those are two separate interests. And if a GM who knew he was going to be there for 4 or 5 years and was trying to really build something was in charge of this team, he doesn't make the Thad Young trade because he's saying, well, what are we going to do that for? We're going to stink anyway this year. Let's play the young guys and see what we have. Regardless, they have a really fun collection of players. And I think, to swing it back to the World Cup, they might have really lucked out with Georgie Dang. I can't say his first name. Dang. Say his first name for me.
I think it's just Gorgie. I think it's just Gorgie.
Gorgie? I have a lot of trouble with that. Gorgie Dang, who was a monster over the weekend, who was great last 3-4 weeks of the season. And, that might be a real keeper. Like, I kind of like their team. I wonder if Pekovic is a possible trade option for them.
I think he is, and I think he's movable. I mean, I was having arguments about this a few days ago with a couple NBA people. I described his contract as unmovable, and they laughed at me and said, "Of course it's movable. He's a good player. I just meant that it's a long contract." They're interesting for. I mean, you bring up Jang, and I think they're going to try and we're going to see them. He's played well enough that he has to play now, and he probably is a center. But Pekovic is there, so I think they're going to try and play the two of them together and have Jang play some four. And then on the other side, you've got Wiggins and young guys who need to play, but you also have and Levine, another guy on the wing, but you also have Brewer, Kevin Martin, and Budinger, like these three veteran wings who, they're going to want to play. And I don't know how you divvy up minutes among those five. It's good. They're just a lot of interesting questions with Minnesota. That said, This is not a good team in the Western Conference. I mean, if anyone's getting their hopes up that this team can win 40 can approach 500, they're not going to. They're going to be a 28 to 33 win team. And Thad Young is not going to move the needle in that direction, either way.
They're a fun trade machine team because Kevin Martin, who is now in a weird way undervalued because his contract isn't great and he hasn't had a lot of great moments, but at the same time, it's 3 years. It's like $20 million, and the guy can shoot. And if you put him on the right team, I think he could be an asset. They'd probably give him away, just take his contract basically. And I think Pekovic is a really above average offensive center who is not very good defensively, but on the right team, that guy could be just excellent. Like, imagine just him putting him on Oklahoma City. If that's even conceivable. I mean, I know they for whatever reason don't ever want to upgrade that last spot in the starting five, but that's a guy who could have a big impact on them.
Well, they sniffed around Monroe, right? I mean, weren't there reports while I was on vacation that they were trying to, or that maybe David Falk was trying to get them involved in a sign and trade for Monroe? I agree. I mean, look, I made my favorite fake Kevin Love trade, or my favorite fake Russell Westbrook trade was to Minnesota for Pekovic and with a lot of other pieces going and maybe even Rubio going. The idea was to put Westbrook and Love together, but Pekovic Ibaka is basically perfect. I mean, Ibaka is like the prototypical guy who can shoot 20-footers and protect the rim, and there's like three of those guys who are alive at any one time. Pekovic can't protect the rim, but he's a post scorer, so he gets the low block on offense and he gets bailed out on defense. It'd be perfect. That kind of guy is perfect for Oklahoma City.
Phoenix is the one team that feels unfinished right now, and the Bledsoe thing has been a debacle. And I really think Rich Paul screwed that up. Sorry, Rich Paul. I think he really messed that one up. Phoenix offered 4 for $48. couldn't have been a more fair price for just what the going rate for above average starting point guards were. And especially when he hasn't played a full season of really good basketball as a starting point guard yet. We haven't seen it. And for whatever reason, Rich Paul thought he deserved the max. And now this is a bad situation. Like now you have like real bad blood. It's really hard to trade him. A lot of teams are set at point guard. What do you think happens with Eric Bledsoe?
I wrote about it right before I went on vacation. I mean, it's so fascinating because on the one hand, you want to say, it reminds me of Eric Gordon, where like Eric Bledsoe is offended by what's going on. And you want to say, do these agents prepare them for what restricted free agency is and how it works and how all the leverage lies with the team and what's going to happen, which is exactly what has happened. But on the other hand, it's like, any employee doesn't want to feel like a piece of meat, doesn't want to feel like their owner and GM are thinking to themselves, oh, we're going to get this guy at a discount and it's going to be great for us and we're going to be known as a smart front office for getting an under market deal on this guy. It's just an uncomfortable situation. I mean, I've said all along that the most likely outcome is that he re-signs at a fair price because I agree with you. That 4 and 48 is a fair price. And look, what are the other outcomes? There's a sign and trade possibility, I guess, right? That brings in base year compensation rules under the cap, which are slightly complicated, but you can get around them. Take the qualifying offer. Like Greg Monroe was allegedly taking the qualifying offer like a month ago. Has he taken it yet? Has he signed it yet? He hasn't because and Bledsoe has had 2 meniscus operations or two knee. I think they're both meniscus operations or 2 meniscus injuries at least. You want to take the qualifying offer 1 year, whatever it is, a few $1 million and bank on you having a great year and nailing free agency the next year. You're probably going to win that bet, but it's a bet. It's a risk. I don't know what the other situation is for him other than to bite the bullet and sign what again is a fair offer for a guy who has played two full seasons as a backup and 2 half seasons, one as a starter and one as a backup. And there's not like a great track record here. And by the way, I think Eric Bledsoe for me was the best of all these restricted free agents. The Gordon Hayward, Chandler Parsons, Monroe. I would have ranked him number 1. I love Eric Bledsoe as a player. There's just no world in which a guy with his track record can say I'm a max player. It's just not. But again, Gordon Hayward is a max player now, so whatever. I don't know.
Well, the difference though is that was a supply and demand situation, right?
Sure, yeah. Wings versus point guards.
Yeah, teams need Parsons and Hayward. There's not a lot of those guys, and a lot of teams wanted those guys. But you have a situation now where you have a bunch of teams who are just set at point guard or don't want to overpay a point guard. And I disagree with you in this respect. I think he gets traded because you pointed out the 2 meniscus operations, and you pointed out we both talked about the bad blood. I think he wants to get paid. I don't think he wants to roll the dice with, let me do a prove it year. Now you have Isaiah Thomas on that team too. You have Dragic. What happens if he doesn't play as many minutes as he played last year? I think they push for a trade. It's interesting. Rich Paul, who one of the best things any agent did this summer was he pulled out the LeBron thing and got Tristan Thompson this unbelievable contract that we don't know about yet. But there's no question Tristan Thompson is getting overpaid at 12 months. So he did that on the one hand, but then this Eric Bledsoe thing, I think he really botched, and I can't figure out where he goes either. Like I've looked at, me, I'm on the trade machine, even in August. I can't find the team for him. Is it Atlanta?
I mean, you brought it up. I mean, how many teams need starting point guards? And he's expensive, and has injury risk, and there's going to have to be sign and trade complications if he does get traded immediately upon signing his contract. I don't know who it is, and it's just going to be very interesting to see how it. I mean, there are a handful of teams that make theoretical sense, and of course, this leads into the other guy you want to talk about, which is Rondo. And look, I don't know if Phoenix is a Rondo team. Obviously, Ryan McDonough knows Rondo well from his days in Boston. And it's easy to say, well, Phoenix has 3 point guards on the roster. Why would they be interested in a guy like that? And that's probably right. But they're now looking at a situation where you may have to assume that unless you're ready to max out Dragic, who can be a free agent after this season, you may have to assume that 2 of those guys are gone. And Isaiah Thomas is your starting point guard. And maybe you're satisfied with that, but maybe you're not.
Well, and the other problem with Phoenix is the last thing they need is to make $1 for 3/4 trade. I don't think they want to do that. They had all these number one picks. They just use, like, they have assets. Like, now it's time for them to actually parlay some of the assets into something. So to spin Bledsoe into a bunch of other pieces, I don't know how that helps them. It feels like they need to get a blue chipper back. And, Bledsoe for Greg Monroe is kind of an interesting trade. I don't think it'll happen, but if you just think about just flipping those guys and their teams, I like Detroit's team more. And you and I aren't big Greg Monroe fans, but I like Phoenix's situation more than just with Monroe than just losing Bledsoe a year from now. So maybe that's how it plays out. I don't know. Do you see any chance of Monroe for Bledsoe?
Boy,
it's not inconceivable, right?
No, it's not inconceivable, and frankly, nor is Rondo for Monroe. On the flip side of that, I mean,
yep.
Detroit's an interesting situation where I don't think Stan Van Gundy thinks that Brandon Jennings is the point guard of the future there, and his contract is actually very short. I think there's only 2 years left on it.
Yep.
But, Bledsoe is a better shooter than Rondo is, and that's the issue of Rondo to Detroit is, like, I don't think Detroit can have a point guard who can't shoot, given that they have a center in Andre Drummond who can literally only dunk. And let's just assume that Monroe goes in this scenario. So your power forward full time is Josh Smith, who can't shoot. I don't think you can add a point guard who can't shoot to that. Not that Brandon Jennings can shoot, but I don't think you can have Rondo as the point guard of that team. But again, he's an upgrade over Jennings in basically every respect. It's Detroit's. As long as these guys are sitting out there, and it's September now, this is not unprecedented, but close to unprecedented to have 2 restricted free agents of this quality. I mean, everyone thought Pekovic took forever, and Pekovic was done by mid-August last year.
I think Stan Van Gundy is one of the 4 people on the planet who would have the balls to trade for Rondo and then just bury Brandon Jennings or try to buy him out.
Totally agree.
Just be like, look, here's $12 million, or here's whatever, we'll buy you out, but whatever your next salary is, we'll go against our buyout, or however that stuff works. I could totally see him doing that. And the irony is, would Brandon Jennings get $3 million a year right now in the open market?
Oh, he'd get more than that.
You think so?
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
From
I don't
who
know.
Though?
Well, I mean, one of these teams. Once we roll the calendar over to next summer. Well, I guess now is a different story, right? Now all the free agency dollars are spent, with the exception of a few teams that don't want to spend or don't want to win. But a year from now, when more than half the league probably is going to have major cap space, I don't even know. I haven't done the calculation of how many teams, but it's going to be a lot. Someone will talk themselves into Brandon Jennings. He's still young. He still does some things. Someone would spend money on him. He makes 8 now. I don't know that he's getting any more than that.
No. I think he's like an amnesty guy. When guys get amnestied and you'd be like, oh, well, like when Scola got amnestied that time. Oh, well, he'll get money. And he ended up going for like 4. I think once there's the taint of a buyout on somebody, it seems like teams are so much more hesitant to go after him. But I just can't imagine that Stan is going to coach a team that has Josh Smith and Brandon Jennings on it for more than 3 months. Something will have to give. That's my expert opinion. Something will give.
He spent the last 2 years, living in Florida, announcing as many or as few college basketball games as he wanted, and spending time with his family. The transition between that and then going to trying to watch tape of Brandon Jennings and Josh Smith take jump shots is harrowing. That's a harrowing life change.
And Brandon Jennings might be one of those guys who's just not good. And it seems like he's good, and there are signs that he's good, and you watch basketball and you think he's good, but when you actually crunch the numbers, it just might be really hard for him to help a winning team. For the skill set that he has with the way the league is now, that might not be somebody who should play more than 15 minutes a game for a good team.
Well, look,
that might be his destiny.
He's been in the league for 5 years. He has shot better than 40% once. It's just I know he doesn't turn the ball over, so there are possessions that even if they're ending in misses, he's not giving away. But it's just hard to be a good NBA player and shoot below 40% every season. It's just really hard.
And unlike Rubio is a terrible shooter too, but he's a really underrated defensive player. He's a great passer. There's things that he brings to the table, and with Brandon Jennings, he's more of almost like a summer league type player versus an NBA player. So that'll be interesting. Anyway, let's talk about Rondo, which is the real reason we're doing this podcast. I didn't want to admit it.
Not Team USA? Team USA is not the real reason?
Yeah, we're like 5-6 days away from Team USA. Plus, we hadn't talked in a month. The Rondo thing is fascinating. It's a staring contest. And he's got a contract. He's in a contract year. The Celtics are going to be absolutely terrible. They're going to be one of the 5 worst teams in the league. Not going to help his trade value. He is a perfectionist. He loves to win. He's super competitive. He was on a bad team last year, tried to make the best of it. I would be surprised if he started this season with the Boston Celtics. What do you think?
Ooh. I don't know where he's going to start the season. I guess I would bet. I always bet on the status quo, right? So I guess I would bet on him starting the season with Boston. But I do think he's a real, and I've been saying this for multiple years now. I don't think Boston wants to pay his next contract, especially if it's going to be. I think they've made up their mind on that years ago. So I think he is a likely trade candidate. I just don't know the team that it's going to be, because I don't know. His market is very hard to read for all the reasons we've discussed about point guards, and add in the ACL surgery and the fact that he's 29 or almost 29, and going to be a free agent, and all these things that would depress his market value. But people around it's a divisive market. You have some people who will cite all of that, and some people on other teams who just love him. He's a winner. He's like all that old school stuff. Like, he's a winner. He's got it in his DNA. He loves the big stage. There are some people in the NBA who just whatever should depress his trade value, they don't care. They love him. They would give up things for him. But it's just hard to see with 1 year left on his contract and the risk that he could walk into a free agency market where all of a sudden all these teams who like him, like for instance the Knicks, have cap room a year from now. It's just a big risk to give up anything of real value for him.
All right, you talk about the cap room a year from now. Kevin Love's off the board. I'm going to cross him off. I think he's out. I don't think he's a free agent 11 months from now unless something horrible happens with him and LeBron. So who are the free agents? Because he's the guy everyone mentions as the big free agent. He's not going to be the free agent. So when I look at a team like the Knicks, what do I care about the 2015 free agency? I'm actually thinking about 16, and Durant would be the year I'm looking at. Sure. So if I'm the Celtics, and I think the Knicks have the most desperation for Rondo of any
Absolutely.
team, I would put Houston second, but I've looked at it from every angle, and I don't know what Houston has to trade. They just don't have the assets. There's nothing to trade. The Knicks don't really have anything to trade either. We've talked about this before. They have future picks. They can take on Gerald Wallace's contract, which I think would be really important to the Celtics. They could put together a Hardaway, Shumpert, 2 first-rounders, take back Wallace's contract.
They can't trade it.
Throw in Amari.
The Knicks can't trade a first-rounder right now until
I'm sorry, you're right. So it'd be 18-20. Yeah, 18.
Or 2018,
no,
yeah.
Yeah, so it could be 18 and 20 would be the 2 picks if it ended up being 2 picks. And Amari's contract, and it still doesn't feel like enough for a guy who was almost the best guy in the 2012 Eastern Finals against LeBron in his prime. Like, this is a real basketball player.
Well, and you bring up the good point of this is where the leverage may tilt a little bit in Boston's direction, because the story you just brought up is the big story, which is like, who's the next big free agent other than Durant? If you even assume that Durant's interested in leaving a team that's going to win 60 games or at least sniff it every year, because it's not LaMarcus Aldridge anymore. It's not LeBron anymore. It's not Carmelo anymore. It's not Kevin Love anymore. Roy Hibbert can be a free agent. Does anyone care? Brook Lopez can be a free agent after this year. Maybe people will care. Marc Gasol is a name that everyone is going to bring up, especially for a triangle team like the Knicks, but he loves Memphis. He grew up part of his childhood there. I don't know.
I was going to say, he always gets mentions. What are the odds that Marc Gasol leaves Memphis? I'm going to say 50-1.
I mean, I think it's actually better than that, but I don't think it's good.
20-1.
But the point is, if you're Boston, you say, okay, so who's the next guy? Who are you going to get? If you don't want to trade for Rondo because you want to keep your cap space open, who is it going to be for? Who is the next star free agent that you're getting? Because you look at the market and you're like, if you want to save up all your cap bullets, you may save. I mean, look, we've gone over this with the Knicks, right? The Knicks are the classic example. They save all their money for LeBron. They go all in for that. They don't get him. They end up getting Amari Stoudemire, and Amari Stoudemire's knees as a consolation prize. And sometimes the consolation prize turns into something you don't want. And that's the danger when you look at the free agent market. Now, the flip side is if Rondo gets to free agency, there's going to be 15 teams or 10 teams or 8 teams. I don't know how many, probably not 15 because of the glut of point guards. But you're going to have competition from 5, 6, 7 teams. I mean, even just a team we haven't thrown out that I think might be the very best Rondo theoretical fit. How fun would
I guess?
Yes.
Can I guess?
Yes.
Charlotte.
Charlotte's a good one, actually, and you could sell me on that. Because
I'm about to, but go ahead with your team, and then I'll sell you on Charlotte.
This is a free agency only team.
Okay.
Dallas. Dallas could have max cap space depending on what happens with Tyson Chandler, and they just filled the wings with Parsons and Monte Ellis. You have Dirk, who's a tailor-made Rondo pick and roll, pick and pop partner, and their point guard situation is kind of a jumble. That's what you have to think about if you're interested in trading for Rondo now. But you're going to have cap space, and you think, well, we can just, the whole thing. Like, why would we trade anything for him if we can sign him as a free agent? You have to think and say, okay, all these teams that can't get him now are going to, at least 2 or 3 of them are going to get in the bidding if we get to the summer, and all it takes is one.
And that's why I think he's going to be traded. I think Dallas is a candidate. They don't quite have enough to trade.
They got nothing. They have nothing.
I was being kind. Dallas and Houston don't really have anything to trade.
Well, Houston has Ariza. Ariza would have to be included because of his salary.
Oh, God. Can you imagine if Darryl did that? I mean, Darryl would trade anybody, even his kids. But I think to do that to Ariza, even for Darryl, would be amazing.
They have the Pelicans pick from the Ashik trade. So they have Terrence Jones. So you can you could make a theoretical offer. Houston's always confused me. I mean, I understand that part of Daryl's philosophy is that talent just solves any problems. Like, if you get a lot of good players, a lot of great players, they'll figure stuff out. And history suggests that that's correct. Even when Miami had all these fit issues that people thought were ruining the team, they came within 2 games of winning the championship their first year together. Talent wins. Now, Houston doesn't have LeBron. I get it. But I've always thought if you have James Harden, I'm not sure that spending $15 million a year on a point guard who needs the ball is the best allocation of resources. But again, if you're operating under the assumption that all these star free agents are never going to really be free agents, maybe it is the best allocation of dollars. I still don't think it is for them, but I've never understood their reported lust for Rondo because of Harden, but maybe you have a better idea than I do.
I still don't like what they did with Parsons. Getting away from it further and further. I don't think it was that bad of a contract. I know it was a bad contract, but with the cap going up and what their other options were, and how it affected this season, and you talk about, you have the flexibility going forward. Well, the flexibility to do what? That sounds awesome on paper, but I know what I had with Chandler Parsons, and I don't think there's a lot of really talented wing guys. There's a guy that almost made the World Cup team just now. I don't like losing assets for nothing, especially I don't like losing assets when I don't know if I'm getting anything. Now, if they kept Parsons, I know they said it would have been hard to trade for him or to trade him after the contract. It would have been hard. It wouldn't have been that hard, especially if you throw in more and more money in a team like Boston, which would have had the Wallace contract and a bunch of other things they could have thrown in. I think it would at least given them a better chance. But Charlotte is the team that I think right now could make a trade for him. First of all, they have cap space. I think they're still under, right?
I'd have to check, but I will do that.
I added it up, and it seemed like they couldn't just get him, but they'd have to put in 1 or 2 contracts. But they could do it. Noah Vonleh is a legitimate trade chip. That's somebody the Celtics consider taking with the 6th pick in the draft. And you talk about, could Rondo and Kemba Walker play together, in your opinion?
Oof. It'd be tough. It'd be tough, just size issues. I mean, I know Rondo has guarded 2s before and can do that. It can guard he's even guarded LeBron and done decently at it, but over a full season, that's a tough ask.
So does Kemba have to be in that trade?
Yeah, for me, for Charlotte to make that trade, Charlotte is right at the cap. I don't know if they're not under what I'm looking at may not be updated, but they're basically right at the cap. To me, if Charlotte makes that trade, it's a recognition that Kemba Walker is not the point guard you want going forward. And maybe
he probably isn't.
And
I don't know if he is.
Maybe that's right. I mean, I like Kemba Walker's a nice NBA player. I don't know that he's a guy that I want to give $10 to $12 million a year to be my franchise point guard. I think that's a conversation that a smart franchise would have. And I think Charlotte, has a lot of smart people working for it. They've had that conversation. I think that's a conversation they should be having. I don't know if they'd ultimately do it. And what else? I mean, you mentioned Vonleh, and what else would be included in the package? But
I was thinking Vonleh and at least one number one pick. And I think they keep Kemba in the trade because part of me thinks, you just laid out some of the reasons. I wonder if he's just a heat check guy off the bench and he's an overqualified like Jamal Crawford. Who's the other guy? Oh, Dion Waiters. How they're claiming they're going to start him, but I think eventually his destiny will be as a off the bench guy. And I wonder if you use Kemba like that, Rondo's your starter. Kemba's your third guard who can back up Rondo at point guard, but also occasionally play with him.
Sure.
And the only person you give off this year's team is Noah Vonleh, and you throw in picks and whatever contracts to make it work. And now you have Rondo and Lance Stevenson as your backcourt. You have Kid Gilchrist. You have Al Jefferson. You have Cody Zeller. You have they have Marvin Williams and Gerald Henderson and Gary Neal. Like, that's a real basketball team, especially in the East. That's a possible 3 seed.
I'll tell you what, though. You have Rondo, MKG, and Lance Stevenson all playing together with Al Jefferson.
You don't like the outside shooting?
There's not going to be a lot of space on the floor. You're going to be flirting with a disastrously bad offense, and that's like, that's the reality. Lance Stevenson is a good 3-point shooter, but not a great one, and I think we'll have to see if he develops further.
All right, let me go back to the drawing board. What if Kid Gilchrist is in that trade?
That's interesting.
What if it's Kid Gilchrist and Vonleh for Rondo?
Whew.
By the way, Internet, don't get mad. Don't say that I'm throwing. I'm just talking to my friend Zach Lowe, and we're trying to come up with possible trades that can work. I'm not reporting any of these trades, so settle down, Internet. Anyway.
Yeah, MKG is just such a complicated piece because you just have to operate under the assumption that he's Tony Allen. I mean, maybe a better Tony Allen, but
it's 6'8" Tony Allen.
It's just hard to build a real offense. Or I mean, like, he has real value, just like Tony Allen has real value. But it's just it's a hard a wing guy who just completely cannot shoot is really hard to take. I mean, it's a really hard.
Is it weird for me to? I feel like he's going to figure out how to at least not be a disaster as a shooter. He seems like the kind of guy who's going to shoot 10,000 shots a day until he becomes mediocre, like a Bruce Bowen, possibly. Bruce Bowen couldn't shoot. I went to Bruce Bowen's 2 years of Celtic games. That guy could not shoot.
It's possible. I mean, he's certainly working hard. He shoots all the time. If you go to I was going to say Bobcats. If you go to a Hornets practice, every time I've gone anyway, or a shoot around, you see everyone else starts doing media or, walking off, and he's doing 20, 30 extra minutes with Mark Price. It's possible. You can't, possible is not something I would bank on in trade talks, but it's possible.
I was trying to work Marcus Thornton into this fake trade, and it's just not working.
I forgot the Celtics had him, by the way. While I was on
how dare you? He's our only shooting guard.
Well, I was on vacation. I was reading something, and I was something involving the Celtics, and this is what I do on my vacation. For like an hour a day, I go to coffee shops and think about the NBA, sadly.
Yes.
I started working out trades, and I was like, well, what salary do the Celtics have other than some of their veteran guys that would fit in here? And I was like, let me look at their cap sheet. I was like, oh, my God, Marcus Thornton. I forgot about Marcus. Oh, you know what it was? I was trying to think how they got the first round pick from Cleveland in the how they butted their way into the Jarrett Jack trade, and I couldn't remember. Poor Marcus Thornton, I just couldn't remember his presence in that trade.
So Rondo for Gerald Henderson, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, and Noah Vonleh works under the cap. The Celtics would have to throw back in a small contract. I like Charlotte as the fit for him, and I like the thought of a Rondo Lance Stevenson backcourt. And also, don't forget this: Rondo and Al Jefferson are buddies. They played together for 2 years.
So are Rondo and Josh
or
Smith,
1 year,
as we know.
Yeah.
The other Rondo team, but again, they have nothing to trade, like almost literally nothing,
yeah,
including draft picks, is Miami. which would be fascinating. But again, that any team that trades for him has to be confident that he's going to re-sign there. Which the Bucks make a lot of theoretical sense, but he's not going to re-sign with the Bucks. The Kings apparently he's already told, or an intermediary has already told them that he won't re-sign there. The Lakers, I don't know. Apparently, I read somewhere that he wouldn't re-sign there. I don't really know why. Everyone loves the Lakers, right? Miami, I could see them liking Rondo, even with the old Celtics antipathy.
Yeah, that's dead.
Well, it's so. By the way, one of my vacation books, because I actually read books when I go on vacation. I finally read Pat Riley's biography. Or autobiography. It's called The Winner Within or some such thing. That dude, I mean, I knew he hated the Celtics. That dude hates the Celtics so much. Like, every page of that book is just dripping with anti-Celtics venom about the locker rooms and the crowd. He basically he calls the whole crowd thugs like several times. It's unbelievable. But he's their kind of guy, right? They're all about the Warriors and the winners and tough guys and blah, blah, blah. Like, he's a Heat kind of guy. They just have nothing to trade, including picks.
I can't even imagine how a Danny Ainge, Pat Riley phone call would go.
It would be unbelievable. They would start cursing at each other. That was the best. Was that last season or 2 seasons ago where they
went at it? Yeah,
that was awesome. When Riley had the press release with profanity in it, was great.
Well, you made the mistake of ruling out the Kings because I think they're capable of anything, and I don't care if Rondo said, "Hey, I'm not playing there." From what we've seen from that team over the last year, I don't think it stops them. I think that owner is. I'm going to be kind and use the word eccentric. I think he's eccentric, and I think he's eccentric enough to believe, oh, well, we'll just get Rondo, and he's going to love it here. Rudy loves it here. We'll just get him into the fold. Give him Ben McLemore. Give him our number 1 pick next year and Jason Thompson's contract, and we're good. I think that's in play.
You said I ruled them out. I didn't rule them out. I just said.
Well, I said you said an intermediary. What'd you say? An intermediary thinks that there's no way he'd resign there.
Well, just that I've read that they've been informed he wouldn't resign there. But no, I agree with you. That's the team that actually makes sense because they've got 2 or 3 guys who make between $5 and $7 million. So the trade package is easy. One of them is Derek Williams, who at least has some sort of residual, let's just plug him in and see if he can actually do some stuff in the NBA. They have their picks. They just dumped Jason Terry onto Houston, which puts them under the tax, which they were going to go over when they signed Caspi and a couple other guys. So it gives them a little flexibility, a little breathing room to work with. So it makes some sense. Although the one thing that they gave 2 second-round picks to Houston in that Jason Terry trade, which is really the 2 second-round picks trade. Boston probably would have wanted at least one of those in a Rondo deal. I don't know if that's a deal breaker, but no, I agree. They have a ready-made trade package that actually makes sense, which a lot of these other teams don't have. You could build.
I forgot about Derek Williams. He makes much more sense in that trade because you could do Derek Williams, Ben McLemore, and the Reggie Evans expiring for Rondo and. With next year's unprotected number 1 pick. And I think the Kings would actually consider that.
I do. Wait a second. I thought Darren Collison was the new franchise point guard. That's what they're saying. Every time Darren Collison, he's the guy. Pass first. Boy, if they want a pass first point guard, Rondo passes up layups 2 times a game to get people contested 20-foot jump shots. He'd be perfect for them.
The other thing is it inconceivable that he would re-sign there? When can they offer him the biggest extension possible? Let's say they traded for him an hour from now. When could they offer him a massive 5-year extension?
5-year extensions, by their definition, can only be 2 years plus whatever is remaining on the contract. So that's why the new CBA, either accidentally or on purpose, basically removed extensions as a tool to re-sign star players. So to get the 5-year contract, he has to become a free agent. That's what sucks for all of these teams.
You're right. I forgot.
Who take gambles like this because the extension is just been vaporized from their toolbox. So they'd have to wait for him to become a free agent, and that's the risk that you take. And I mean, would he resign there? I don't know. I mean, you got Cousins, you got Rudy. I think he and Rudy have a good relationship dating back a long time, but that's not a good team, and it's in the Western Conference. And it's at some point, some of these teams in the Western Conference are going to roll over their talent and not be awesome anymore. But I don't know that Rondo will be 32 by the time that happens. I don't know. You look at that Kings roster. do you see a roadmap to a top 4 seed ever in the Western Conference? I don't.
You're talking about Vivek, though. The guy who went and got Rudy Gay and did all the other stuff they've done. And I don't know.
They haven't gotten Josh Smith yet, though, which to their credit.
They tried. But they tried
in the sense that they said, we'll give you nothing. We'll give you these dead contracts that we don't want. We will not give you a pick, and we will not give you a young player. I think if they gave either one of those things, they would have Josh Smith. And they didn't, which speaks well to their sort of reasonableness, at least for now. But I don't know, does Rondo want to resign there? I mean, I don't know Rondo. I don't talk to him about these things. But if I wanted to win, if that's all I cared about, I would find an Eastern Conference team with cap room and reasonable talent, or not even cap room, just an Eastern Conference team that's good and has a need for my skills, which isn't very many, and force my way there. That's where I would go.
If Rondo can get to free agency, I would put my money on Houston or the Knicks.
The Knicks to me make the most sense for all the reasons I just said.
Yeah. Okay. Zach Lowe, glad you're back. I look forward to. I know you're gonna. I can't wait for when you finally snap and ride along. What's gonna happen with the World Cup? It's gonna happen. You're gonna snap and you're gonna ride some long World Cup. Something's gonna inspire you, and my bet is Spain, because I just picture you watching Spain wearing a smoky jacket and smoking a pipe and just making crazy noises, just being excited by the ball movement.
Spain just waxed Brazil yesterday. Like they were on a different planet. Well, like here's where I am right now. This tournament, all right, I know you wanted to end this podcast, but I now have to say something.
No, go ahead. Say it.
It's not exciting to me because all these teams are not good. Like this U.S. team, to be frank, is obviously a great team. They're not that great, particularly defensively. We start Anthony Davis and 4 bad defensive players. Kenneth Faried is okay on a good day. Like this team can be beaten. They have weaknesses. They make mistakes. They leave guys open. They botch stuff. It's not a great Team USA, and all these other teams stink except Spain. And if we don't get Spain, Team USA at some point in this tournament, I just don't think we may not have a great Team USA game ever. But I would say US at this point, Team USA to me is only a slight favorite over Spain. I would say like 58 to 62% chance they beat Spain. Spain is really, really good, and they're the one team, like any defensive hiccup that we have, they're the team that has the passing and shooting to hurt us. And I don't think France would be frisky if they had Noah and Parker. They don't. I just don't see a team. Brazil can't score. I don't know. It hasn't been exciting. It's exciting, but it hasn't been exciting.
USA is a favorite. Spain is, I think, my plus 160. So you'd bet 500 or 800 on it. I don't understand how Spain is in favor because the game's in Spain, and America added all these. They added Boogie and they put Drummond on the team because they're so afraid of this Spain game. Spain's playing both. They're playing both Gasols and Ibaka at the same time.
What is Drummond doing during these games? Is he sleeping? Where is he? He doesn't is he just taking stats? What is he doing? Why is he on the team? Why is Plumlee playing over him?
Andre Drummond's the Hashim Thabit of this team for some reason. He's just kind of there, and it looks good on paper.
Like, we were playing New Zealand today, and DeRozan and Plumlee come in late in the second quarter when we're up by whatever. And Fran Fraschilla, who's awesome, is like, oh, it looks like we're expanding beyond the 9-man rotation with the other guy. He called them the other 3, DeRozan, Plumlee, and Drummond. But only 2 of them are playing. Where's the other guy? Drummond's not even there. I think Spain USA is almost a 50-50 game to me. You even would consider Spain favorites.
I think Spain would beat this U.S. team. And we're going to talk with House about this in a second, but I don't like what we're doing with this Team USA thing. Either send our best guys or just make it an under 23 and under team. Like, we're in no man's land now. This is not the best possible team. This isn't even like close to being the best possible team. It's a team that doesn't really make a ton of sense when you look at it on paper, and it's all for reasons because they were counting on Durant and Kevin Love and Paul George, and all these guys fell by the wayside. But at this point, just make it 23 and under. Make it like make us more of an underdog type thing, and actually play Drummond in the games and do things like that. That makes more sense to me than what we're doing.
Yeah, I don't mind the roster construction. but I just don't. It's not compelling to watch us beat these teams.
Well, that's the thing. If it's not compelling, then what's the point? Then I just want an overall purpose, and I don't totally understand the purpose of this particular team. And again, it's not fair that Durant quit at the last second. And by all accounts, by the way, I think the Paul George thing was why he left.
It should have been.
I think he was messed up by that. Well, there's been, oh no, that wasn't the reason. It's like, no. Make no mistake, that was the reason. He was out after that happened. I think a couple other guys were almost out too. But
well, and that's anyway. Huge for Spain because Spain's big weakness, not weakness, but Spain has no size or defense on the wing. Like their starting wings are Juan Carlos Navarro and Rudy Fernandez, and like you put Durant or LeBron at the 3, and they're toast. That's why they play zone against us all the time. Even Brazil was posting up against Rudy Fernandez yesterday. We're tiny now. Unless you unleash DeRozan as like a post-up player, which I think other teams would be fine with. We can't exploit that. We can exploit them in other ways, but we don't have size anymore and on the wing. And I think that's Spain. This is Spain's golden chance if they can get there to beat us.
And they're going to be super motivated, and they've been waiting to play this game for 2 years. And it's a problem. So anyway, all right, Zach Lowe, look forward to reading you on Grantland over the next 2 weeks with this cup, and look forward to getting an NBA season with you.
Have fun.
Before we get to our next guest, a word from our friends at Subway.
Fuel your training routine with protein-packed footlongs at Subway, like the turkey breast or oven-roasted chicken, made the way you say with all of your favorite fresh veggies on your choice of freshly baked bread. Subway, train hard, eat fresh.
All right, my buddy Joe House, ready to talk World Cup. First of all, we're going to talk a little NFL too, but first of all, is it unpatriotic for us to bet on Spain?
We'll be betting with American dollars. We'll be using U.S. currency. That feels pretty patriotic.
Spain looks like a beast. I don't understand how they're that. Zach said he'd give America, like, we just had Zach on, he said it's like a 54 to 58% chance or something to beat Spain. I think in Spain, I think Spain is the favorite. I do.
I don't argue. I agree with you, as evidenced by my communications last week, suggesting that we take a long look at a Spain-based wager.
Cousin Sal got mad at us. He said it's NFL season. How dare we even discuss this? He might have even called us a couple of offensive names.
He used a bad word.
He used a bad word. By the time we get to, I think the semis, I think we're gonna, especially after I lose all my week 1 NFL bets, which I look forward to doing. It's an annual tradition of the teams I get excited about who let me down in week 1, and all of a sudden I'm down and wondering what happened and trying to climb out of a hole. I'm not even giving any online betting services my money this year.
Congratulations.
So if they're counting on my $1,000 my reload for $1,000, not happening this year. Sorry, offshore betting accounts, not happening.
I'm proud of you.
I'm out. Have you watched any World Cup, or you don't care?
No, I've been watching. I watch all the U.S. games. Today is the first game I missed because it was on during work hours.
You didn't miss it. You didn't miss much.
You know, the identity of the team. It's really interesting to me, this combination of players that came together really so quickly. You know, the inclusion of Rudy Gay at the 11th hour because of the Paul George injury. I just find it kind of interesting, and I'm really excited to watch Kyrie because I want to see what kind of run he has in advance of, in anticipation of his linking up with LeBron. So I have watched these games and enjoyed them. The thing about the Turkey game, you probably covered this with Zach, that was so interesting was I felt like, and you and I talked about this a little bit in the summer, I was watching a Duke game in the following way. Teams that have success against Duke control the pace, make their three-pointers, and don't let Duke get second attempts. And that's what Turkey did to us for almost 3 quarters Saturday.
I wasn't watching the game because I was out with my fam. You sent me a panic text at halftime, just killing everybody in the team. I thought we were down by, I thought we lost. I didn't get the text till later. I thought we had lost by 20. And it turned out we won, but you were upset.
It was a typical overreaction. That is my way, of course. But
I support
this when Anthony Davis finishes the half with no points and 1 rebound, I mean, that's a concern.
I said
Omer
to Zach,
Sheik, his teammate in New Orleans, kind of pushed him around.
Well, that's fortunately they'll be playing together. I said this to Zach, and I'm going to bring this up with you as well. I feel like we're in no man's land with this team. Not totally anyone's fault, because Durant and George and Kevin Love, like, these guys dropped out for a variety of reasons, and nobody expected that. But at this point, I just wish this was like a 23 or a 24 and under team, and it was just young guys. And
yeah, but the criticism of taking that approach is that we can't possibly compete with the best teams with our 24 and unders or 23 and unders.
Why not?
That we put ourselves back into unnecessarily handicapping ourselves.
But maybe that would be good. I mean, is it a bad thing to have Andre Drummond playing 25 minutes in these games?
It means you're reimagining altogether how the U.S. holds itself out in these world competitions, that we're using it as a training ground and breeding ground for our talent rising up through the ranks. That's fine, but it just cuts against, I think, the way that the team has directed itself the past 15 years, the way that USA basketball has conceived of the way it wants to deliver the U.S. presence, the way it wants to market the NBA. Not that the two are related in any way, shape, or form, but that just a whole kind of wholesale change in direction is what you're describing. I would love to see it, just to see kind of where our kids are compared to the rest of the world, but I also think it would be painful in the first handful of competitions, the Olympics and these World Cup competitions, because I tend to agree with the idea that our youth can't compete with the very best in the world at this point.
Well, it's been basically a 23-year run here, going back to 91 when they picked the Dream Team. And in the first Dream Team, everyone played. Second Dream Team, everyone played. And on down the line, and for the most part, you had Duncan not wanting to play. I can't remember what year. Through all the Olympics, pretty much everyone has shown up. But then they were saying they would use the World Championships, like that was part of this whole thing. You had to play in those. Now it seems like that's faded away, and then the Paul George thing probably ruined it. So now I don't know what this is now. Like, maybe you just save the best guys for the Olympics, but the World Cup becomes the 23 and under team.
I like that a lot. I think there's definitely some merit to it. I mean, our 23 and unders, you could put a really interesting team out there. You would lose guys, though, that are critically stabilizing the forces, like Steph Curry. I mean, he is, to me, the single most impressive player because of, he just makes the big shot so far. When they needed one. Now it's limited sample size here, but I really love watching him play so far.
Have you been watching Klay Thompson in the World Cup thinking that Golden State totally made the right move in not trading him for Kevin Love? Has that thought entered your mind once?
I mean, we don't know for sure that at the end of the day, Golden State wouldn't include. Is that really? Has that been reported as fact? Is that the truth, or is that just the speculation and rumor?
We know for sure.
Okay. Well, they missed. That was a swing and a miss.
18, 2-2. Gonna keep that. I get it. I understand it. I liked all the reasoning behind it. I just think Kevin Love is really underrated. I think he's going to be great on this Cleveland team. I really think he's going to just kill it on Cleveland. Like, he's going to kill it.
I just think it's going to be unbelievably fascinating to watch. Every single Cleveland game is such must-see TV this year.
I don't know what to expect. I'm
trying to figure out ways to invite myself to Cleveland to game.
Well, we know the hotel.
Yeah, we love that.
We stayed
hotel.
there for the Collectors Convention. They had the casino next to it. That was one of the 3 worst casino experiences I've ever had. Hey, Cleveland Casino. You should be able to join a shoot mid-hand. That's an absurd rule. I don't even understand how you arrived at that rule. 2, I shouldn't have to pay for my own drinks in a casino. It's un-American.
That was a tough one.
And then 3, cigarette smoke. You're not going to allow people to smoke in your casino? What is this? Terrible.
I don't have anything to say.
Boo!
They took every single one of our money.
Yeah, of course they did. They skewed all the rules in their favor and made it the most unfun gambling experience anyone could have. Hey, would you like to buy your own drink and then not smoke cigarettes? Sure. Great. Here's my money. I'm still bitter.
Some mojo. It was tough getting some positive
there was
mojo.
No mojo to be had. What kind of casino doesn't allow you to join a shoot mid-hand?
Yeah, I don't know.
Ridiculous. I'm still mad about it. At Cleveland, though, I did enjoy the collectors convention. It was a fun hang, and we got to ride a Ferris wheel, which was fun and special to all of us. You don't want to talk about your Washington professional football team because you don't know if they're going to go 5-11, 6-10, 7-9, 8-8.
I mean,
9-7.
It feels like an extremely 8-8 team, and that
very
is
8-ish
because of the hedge you have to deploy with this quarterback quandary and conundrum. You and Sal covered it. Kirk Cousins, let there be no doubt, outplayed RG3, coming and going, and in the middle, and at the beginning, and in the each of the quarters that he played in every which way, he outplayed him and demonstrated a proficiency with the play calling and what it appeared to be Jay Gruden's game plan that RG3 did not replicate. He never reached that level in this preseason, but it's preseason, so who cares?
I'm glad you brought this up because I've read all the same things and have seen all the same pieces and all that stuff. Why wouldn't the Rams just offer their first round pick to the Redskins for Kirk Cousins? Make it like a second if they don't make the playoffs and a first rounder if they do, or make it like top 17 protection on the first rounder, or else it becomes a second and a third. Or can't those two teams just make a trade with each other?
Well, first of all, the Washington professional football team can't possibly part with Kirk Cousins because it has a quarterback that hasn't played in 16 consecutive games yet. So that would be a terrible decision, and I would recommend against it. And I think there's no level of compensation at this stage of the season that's appropriate because it's possible that our quarterback, that the starting quarterback for the Washington professional football team gets hurt in the first quarter of the first game. I'm not rooting for it or hoping for it or anything. I mean, I want him to play all 16 games, the RG3. I love the RG3, but he plays a position in a way that puts him at risk. I don't know if you saw any of the footage of him trying to slide this preseason. It was not good. It was awkward. I mean, it looked like there was a lot of the commentariat here in the Washington D.C. metropolitan area had a lot of things to say about maybe he should go over to the Nats and spend some time with those guys running the bases, anything. To get him more comfortable with sliding, but it's a tough enough position for a pocket guy, for a guy that whose natural strengths and talents have him running around a little bit, and has now a history of taking hits and not getting right back up after them. I don't love the idea of doing anything to the backup quarterback other than keeping that young fella ready to get on the field.
What if you traded Robert Griffin to Kevin Costner for 3 first-round picks? Did you see that movie?
I didn't. Was that a straight-to-DVD movie?
Oh, it's been on airplanes. I have a lot of thoughts on draft day. I'll save them. For either a podcast or some sort of column. But
I have not seen the movie.
Just take the most absurd thing that you could imagine happening in a sports movie and then triple it. And then lobotomize yourself. And that's what you get with one of the moments in the movie. Give yourself a lobotomy, hit your head on your desk 100 times. Imagine the worst thing that could happen in a sports movie from a realism standpoint, and then hit your head another 20 times.
Wait a minute. You're describing what I did to myself after the Nats lost in the playoffs to the Cardinals in Game 6.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Well, do that again. Repeat that process. You did really well picking games last year.
I did. I had a great run.
You had an unbelievable run. You won the ZFL, Gus Ramsey's Picks League, the famous
I finished
ZFL.
In the top 40 of the Super Contest.
Yeah, you had a huge Super Contest run.
Yeah, we were in second at Thanksgiving, and then it kind of went off the rails a little bit from there.
What teams do you like this year? Is there anybody you're looking at in week one? Anyone you're eyeing?
No,
Is there any undervalued?
I mean this. This may sound surprising. I haven't looked at all. I'm coming at it completely fresh. I've been deliberately avoiding the lines. I don't even know what the lines are. I only know that Washington plays Houston in the first week. That's really, and Green Bay plays Seattle. And otherwise, I'm going to start all of my research tonight.
Is this what you did last year?
Yes, it is exactly what I did last year.
So you cleared your brain and then you inundate it right before the season and then you go.
Yeah, well, I form a few impressions. Like, I obviously have a point of view. I will have a point of view by the time I start making my picks, which will be Wednesday night, on power ranking. I know who I think are the top 10 teams already. But
any surprises in there?
I'm going to try and replicate what I did last year.
Any surprises in that top 10?
I don't think so. I think all of the top 10 are teams that people have already identified as, sleepers and up-and-comers. The one team that I really like this year that I think could win like 13 games is New Orleans. I just think that engine, they only lose one game a year at home at most. And, so I really like the way that I think they're set up for a deep run this season.
Wow, I'm so glad you came on. You haven't done any homework. You like your top 10 is conventional, and you like New Orleans, a team that's one of the consensus Super Bowl favorites. What else do you have to offer us, Joe Hess?
Well, look, all I did was win last year. I picked Seattle by quite a bit in the Super Bowl. We did a podcast pre-Super Bowl. I picked them coming and going, and all they did was dominate. I mean, what do you want me to do?
I think you just submitted your application to be on a Sunday NFL pregame show.
Well, Ditka could be available, right? Isn't he in trouble for his Redskins thing?
Who is?
Ditka.
Oh.
Did he get in trouble for that?
I think he did and he didn't. I think he's going to be around.
Okay, good.
It's going to be interesting, though, because a lot of people are saying that they're not going to say the name anymore, and I've been trying not to use it. But you slip sometimes. I probably said it earlier in the podcast and didn't even realize I did it. It's just tough when you've grown up saying the name of a team, and they were one of those teams that the two names always went together, right? It was like Dallas Cowboys, and it's just weird to just shut that off. And I think it's going to be hard for some of these media personalities who are going to say, I'm not going to say it during a game. I think they're going to end up accidentally saying it.
Yeah, I think it's a dumb thing and arbitrary to try and not say it. I mean, I think eventually
it's one thing not to write it, but not saying it is harder. It's just harder to do it in the moment.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean anything about your point of view on the issue or what's in your heart in terms of the sort of right-headedness of continuing to use the name. People are going to say it. It's been out there for 70 years.
Do you like the Washington Americans?
No, I don't really like that. Whose idea
is there a name you like?
Huh? The Warriors.
Is there a name
That's
you
what
like?
Makes the most sense. You can keep all of the. You can keep the color scheme, and you can keep many of the traditions, even some of the old insignia and so forth. You just have to replace the picture of the red-faced man that's on the helmet. If you could replace the picture of the red-faced man, then you can mainly preserve the tradition and everything else. I think Warriors get you there.
Washington Warriors.
Yeah, that works.
That's pretty good.
I like it.
Washington Pigskins is interesting, too.
That's a good one. I've never had any problem with Pigskins. That's a fine one.
Call them the Skins. You're calling them the Skins anyway.
That's right. Sometime it's going to happen, the name change, but probably not this year.
Well, the Twitter moral majority is going to get on the case again.
How are you feeling about your team, the Pats, this year?
Really good. A little too good.
What happened with Mankins? Why was he expendable?
Hey, that's what they do. They sniff it out.
That's it,
Belichick,
right?
You know how dogs can tell when other dogs are sick? Dogs smell other dogs when dogs... Yeah. I think that's what Belichick does. He just kind of smells the players. If he doesn't like the smell, they're out. And his track record is phenomenal with getting rid of these guys at the right time. The only one you could argue that he might have traded a year or two too soon was Seymour. They got a first-round pick from the Raiders out of it.
Yep.
I mean, that was a pretty good trade. But for the most part, when it's time, it's time. You're out. And they wanted a tight end. They liked the tight end. They got a pick for him. I was bummed. I love Bankins. I just thought he was a great Patriot. But it's a guard. Like, guard is that's the position where, like, your guard breaks your leg and they bring, like, the long practice snapper in there and he plays guard. Like, it's not a make or break position. He was great when he was, 2, 3, 4 years ago. But if they felt like he wasn't great anymore, then what's the drop off going from him to somebody who's not as great?
And I guess you're not worried about chemistry issues on the line?
Nah.
I mean,
I think they'll be fine. They had such a bad year last year.
The line did. The New England Patriots
the team, like, just in terms of Hernandez happened, Gronk got hurt, Mayo goes down, Woolfolk goes down. The receivers, they took them a while to get everybody on the same page. Then Gronk came back. Then Gronk blew out his ACL. It was kind of like, weirdly, the year from hell. And they overachieved at 12-4. It really should have been a 9-7 season. And now you have all these guys back. They had another good draft. Revis, Brandon Browner. There's stuff to like in this team.
And the division the division did not take a major leap forward.
Well, your conference is the much more loaded conference. That's another thing in the Pats' favor. Like, if you ask 10 people who they think the third best team in the AFC is, I think you would not get a consensus answer. Whereas the NFC, arguably maybe 7 or 8 of the best 10 teams are in the NFC right now.
Yeah, it does.
So that helps the Pats too.
There's going to be a lot of cannibalizing.
You know how much I like the Chargers. I think the Chargers are in the conversation. So I would say there's 3, and I like the Bengals more than most.
Yeah, I like the Bengals too. The Bengals are my answer for the third best AFC team, which may sound insane.
No, that's one of the consensus answers would be the Bengals. Some people like the Colts. I don't totally see that one.
Well, I still like the Colts because I am over the top. My single favorite player in professional football right now is Andrew Luck. I'm not even kidding. He's my favorite player to watch.
I really appreciate you saying that, Joe. I'm a fan of your work as well. It's been great listening to you on the BS Report these last 6 years.
I swear I wasn't baiting you into that, but I'm so happy I got
appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks for the setup. Hey, last question, then I'll let you go, because you have a child. So, my daughter, soccer, her season starts on Sunday.
Yes.
Every game is Saturday this year except for this one effing Sunday.
That's terrific. Congratulations for that.
11:15 start. West Coast time.
Uh-huh.
So there's a Thursday night game. Then there's 2 Sunday afternoon games.
Yep.
A Sunday night game and 2 Monday night games.
Yeah.
The one time, if I'd picked any time for her not to have a game, it would have been somewhere between 10 and 1 on Sunday when there's like 10 or 11 games.
Sure.
11:15, dead center, right in the middle. And it's a drive. It's like a 40-minute drive. I have to go, right? If I don't go to the game, the Pats lose.
Not only that, it's week 1. This is the week you go. Like you were handed. That's why I started congratulating you. You were handed this incredible gift. All Saturday games. The week to miss is this week. Absolutely, positively.
So, miss football this week is your
football. Go to your daughter's soccer game. Have to do it.
What are the rules for bringing an iPad and maybe looking at the iPad a couple times in the Red Zone channel?
It's soccer, right? Why couldn't you have the iPad on and running and watch the whole thing?
Because she'll know. She knows. She rules me. She rules my inner being. She knows every time my attention isn't 100% on her. She will she will look over once and then sulk the rest of the game if she sees me looking at the iPad.
Oh, no. Well, you need to keep it out of eyesight. You need to have it somewhere where where it's not obvious that you have your head down and that you're looking at the thing. You have to be able
I don't look at it. I don't look at it during the entire game. Maybe once at halftime.
That's tough.
This happened last year, too. The Pats played the Broncos in the playoffs, and she had a soccer game, and I brought the iPad and tried to do both, and it was a disaster in every sense. Her team got killed. The Pats got killed. She was mad anyway. Like, it just couldn't have gone worse.
Well, that's playoffs. That's a whole different deal. This week one, you can make the sacrifice, and you have to do it. You have to go to the soccer game, and if there's any possibility of altering your daughter's performance or mood by her catching you look at the iPad, then don't look at the iPad. It's only week one. Get out there, get that support in place, get her the W that she deserves, and move on with it. You have another 16 weeks after this.
Yeah, it's true.
It's a small block of time.
I do feel like that I should get the game ball if the Pats win. Or at least a replica of the game ball.
Well, you can.
And the other thing I can do, I'm gonna tape the Saints-Falcons game, and I'm gonna tape Pats-Dolphins.
Yep.
Because those are the two big ones early, and I might also even tape the. I think Bengals-Ravens is early too. I kind of want to see that too, so I can always just watch those on Monday.
Of course.
Speed through them.
Easily. And that NFL game on tape is like a 45-minute at best deal. I mean, at most. You can get through it in a half hour to 45 minutes.
Well, you'll get to hear a full report of what happened on Monday's podcast.
I can't wait.
Joe House, good luck with the Washington professional football team. Good luck with your preparation. I look forward. You're going to tweet your picks, right?
Starts tonight. Huh?
Are you and Sal tweeting your picks this year for Super Contest?
Oh, are we? I hope so. That would be great. We should do it.
You should. So follow at House from D.C. He did really well last year. You might want to listen to him. Talk to you soon. Take care, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
Target % off. Whoa.
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.
Gotta say, Golick, great call on grabbing Subway for lunch and getting guacamole on our subs.
Told you this new guac really amps up the flavor.
Yep, something adding up things can be great. Guacamole on your sub, a new co-host to replace you.
What was that?
Oh, no, nothing.
Subway now has deliciously rich new guacamole made from ripe Hass avocados with just a hint of garlic, onion, and jalapeno. Discover how new guacamole turns up the flavor on any of your freshly made favorites. Subway, eat fresh.